Hi everyone, I'm Liz Haywood and this is the Zero Waste Ursa dress, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to put the gusset into the side. This is the body and this is the slit and this is the very bottom of the slit. So pull the slit shut, take a piece of interfacing that's 2 centimeters by 6 centimeters, and put it right at the bottom so that the bottom of the slit touches the top of the interfacing. Iron that on. And do the same to the bottom of the other slit. So now it's like this. And while you're at the ironing board, take the gusset and press the top down 2 centimeters. And notice which way the gusset has to go in. So there's a straight side. Can you see it this way? There's a straight side and an angled side, and the straight side goes to the front and the angled side goes to the back. So that would be the front and that would be the back. So first we need to do stay stitching around the bottom of the slit, and we'll be doing it on the piece of interfacing. So we put the machine on a small stitch, and you can get a pen and do a dot to mark the pivot points at the 1 centimeter marks, but I'm going to use the thread guide on the sewing machine. So I'll start down about here, okay, and I'm just going to stitch a small stitch, and I'll just turn, so I'm at the first pivot point, so I'm just going to turn and check that I've gone far enough. So there's the guide, and I am. I'm going to stitch across the bottom now, turn and check, yep, we're good. I'm using a perfectly matching thread. Okay, stay stitching done. Now I'm going to snip into the corners of that stitching, and I'm going to snip right to the corner but not snip the actual stitching. Like that. So now you've got a little triangle at the end. So now we can put the gusset in, which is here. And just make sure you've got it around the right way, so the angled side goes to the back and the straight side goes to the front. So I'll be sewing in the back angled side first. So I'm going to match the top of the gusset with the notch. Oh, I'm going to switch my machine back to normal length. Okay. Okay, so we start at the top here. Right, so I've got started, and now I'm going to go down to the end and pop a pin in between. Well, I'm not going to put a pin in between anything. I'm just going to put a pin in the pivot point and the corresponding point on the gusset and pin them together. Now, you'll be able to see, I don't know if you can see that, how much ease there is that's different. So I'm going to put a pin halfway along, so I've distributed half the ease at the beginning and half at the end. And then I'm going to slip my left hand in between the 2 layers and push the underneath layer forward as I sew. So I've got the gusset underneath and the body on the top, and I'm easing the gusset in as I sew. And by putting your hand between the 2 layers, you'll find it's quite easy to get that ease in. And you can use this technique for sewing sleeve heads or anywhere else where you need to ease, but you don't want to do an ease thread. So as I get down to the end here, I'm going to switch the machine back to a short stitch for strength. And then I'm going to stitch I'm stitching just to the outside of the stay stitching, so you won't be able to see it on the right side. And I'm going to plunge the needle down in the pivot point and turn it around. I'm just going to move the fabric around the needle and just arrange it so that I can stitch across the straight part at the bottom. Okay. So now I'm stitching up to the second pivot point. I'm just going to arrange, yeah. So now I've plunged the needle down exactly in the second pivot point, and now I can turn again. Okay, sometimes it helps to give the fabric a little tug around the needle to get it all sitting nice and flat. Right, now I can put the machine back to a normal stitch. Now I'm past all that pivoting, and then it should be an easy run home to the end. I'll just pin the top of the gusset to the notch so I know where I'm going, and they should match perfectly. I don't use many pins, but if you need to use pins, more pins, please do feel free. And we're here. So let's take a look. Not bad. We should be striving for sharp, even corners. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to overlock, and then I'm going to press it all away from the gusset, and then I'm going to edge stitch on the body side to keep it all in place. Hi, I'm back, and I'm all pressed and overlocked. If you've got overlocking tails like I have at the end of your gusset, you can get rid of them with a loop turner like this, that you might have for turning ruler loops at home. All you need to do is thread it through the overlocking, maybe about an inch or a couple of centimeters, and just work it through the stitches, and then put the overlocking tail in the latch hook, and then just pull out and pull down at the same time, and it'll take it through for you, and then you just cut off the end. If you don't have one of those, you can use just an ordinary sharp darning needle, but I recommend threading it through first like this. Thread it through the overlocking, and then just leave the eye out, and then thread your overlocking tail through. So the only thing left to do now is edge stitch around the edge of the gusset. So I'm going to start at the top of the gusset here. You might have an edge stitching foot for your machine, but I just do it by eye. If you've got fine fabric like mine, you might need to hold it taut. So hold it either side of the foot, one hand at the front, one hand at the back, and hold it taut as you sew, but just let it feed through of its own accord. Well, I find if I don't for this kind of fabric, it will pucker, and you won't even be able to get it out with the iron. It'll just be like that. So I'm coming down to the end. I'm just going to pivot and stitch across the bottom. Now I'm going back up the other side, except I overstepped the mark. Okay, now I'm good. And when you sew holding it taut, you just need to reposition your hands after you've sewn each little section. Now I'm at the end. Gusset is complete.